All right, welcome along. It is, of course, Chris Brown. I'm here with Rob Blackburne. He is former Fit Pro, turned mindset extraordinaire.
Elite performance coach for professional footballers.
There we go. He corrects me. Elite performance coach for professional footballers. And he works on the inner game with a whole host of football players from all tiers, right, in professional football.
Yeah. Basically, started mainly the higher pros. The lower pros haven't got. It depends. It's obviously money, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And they haven't got the facilities. And normally, footballers have people inside their clubs, but they're scared to go to anyone inside their clubs. Football is literally full of fear, and they fear that if they go to someone inside the club, they're going to tell the manager.
Yeah, like a therapist or...
Yeah. So football is very fear-based. So I need to see someone and I need to go to someone that I can trust, and I think I speak, well, I don't know. I do speak their language. So I speak the footballers' language. I'm not wearing a... You have to think footballers are scared of... One of their biggest fears is the fear of judgment. They're so scared of judgment. So what most clubs do, they sit them in a room with someone with a clipboard who's writing there, and they feel like they're being judged.
And they're like, look up like this.
Yeah. So they're like, well, that's not what I want. So I do things a little bit differently. It's not the usual sitting down, having therapy. We do like group calls, Zoom calls, play golf. I take them over parks. Sometimes I box them. Just like different.
Open them up a little bit.
Yeah, just do something a little bit different, right? So they just open up and they can be vulnerable, because again, it's another big fear. It's the same as anyone, really. Vulnerability is seen as a weakness when it's not. And
football's so fickle, right? You're in, manager's in love with you. You're the best thing on the planet. Manager's out of love with you, and you're nowhere to be seen. I mean, we've both had a background in football.
Yeah, kicked out of Chelsea, young age.
Yeah. Good friend of mine, Johnny, was at Liverpool. Yeah. And we often have conversations around this, how as soon as he dropped out of football, like his identity was gone.
Yeah.
Like he was known to be as he was growing up as like Johnny plays for Liverpool.
Yes.
Like it's such a difficult thing.
Massive thing in football. I saw one of the clips you did the other week about identity, and I put it out there on my socials, and I had so many players reach out because they feel the same way. All they're known as is a footballer. As soon as someone sees them in the street, they go, "Oh, you're all right for a footballer." And
yeah.
A footballer,
I'm a human being.
Exactly.
Who plays football. Like,
it's all based around your job, what you do. Your job is what you do and who you are. And then I go out with players, and are we allowed to swear in this?
Yeah, fucking seriously.
They would be out and they get called all sorts of the C word, and you're like, hold on, you don't even know that person, or oh, you're this, you're that. Literally walking down the street, you're like, wow, how do you? I see how you struggle to deal with this. Everyone's like, oh, because they're a footballer, fans see him as fair game.
Because they get paid a lot of money. It's like, oh, you're rich, so it's fine.
Yeah, you earn a lot of money. Like, you get abused everywhere. You must be used to it, but they're not, and they take it players literally get on Twitter after a game, look for their name, scroll. Obviously, the negative sticks. They look for the
dude. It's like, I don't know why people would think any different. Like, if you, I don't know, the majority of people, right? They don't actually put content out there, but as creators, as coaches, when you put stuff out there, you get feedback, and it does sting. Like, it takes a lot of time for you to actually detach from the fact that people are commenting on stuff or maybe giving you a little bit of hate, but that's like minuscule compared to what a professional footballer will get, even from their own fans.
Yeah, it's tough. As I said, they search for it, they look for it. There could be, as you know, 100 great comments, but they're looking for that one negative, especially if they're in that mindset, like they're not playing that well, or things are going a little bit badly. And it's mad. It's again in football, they always say, oh, things are going well off the pitch. But what you find is it's off the pitch and it transcends to on the pitch. So there might be a problem at home. There's a problem with a friend. There's anxiety somewhere, or a relationship's broken up, and then it translates to on the football pitch. So they're just in this wrong state of mind. And then when they play football, their confidence goes down, and then their performance goes down. And I always say that, as you know, I'm like, listen, if you lose form, it's not a skill set problem.
Yeah.
It's a mindset problem.
Yeah.
It's a way of thinking problem. It's you're in the wrong attention channel. So you're going into an internal attention channel rather than when we play our best game, we've got 2 external channels, broad and narrow, and then we've got 2 internal channels, broad and narrow, and you're going into that. Again, I've been there as a goalkeeper. When things are going wrong, the little voice comes in, don't cross it, don't cross it, don't cross it, don't cross it, don't shoot, it's going to score, it's going to score, it's going to score. Yeah. And I've been dealing with Premier League footballers who, like for example, a goalkeeper, shot's about to come in, he's got into that internal channel. You know, you go back to the first stages of learning, and he's going, right, I've got to put my feet here, got to put my knees here, my hands in it. Oh, it's in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's overthinking things.
Yep.
Rather, I'm like, change your channel, change your attention. Instead of attention going internal, change your attention to external. Concentrate on the Premier League sign on the ball. But then you'll do it automatically. It's unconscious. You've saved so many shots rather than going, it's not a technical problem. It's a thinking problem. And that's what I think players, especially pros, they struggle with when things go wrong. Like one of my mates moved to a big club, things started going wrong. They work harder, they train harder, they train more, they do more in the gym, and they get worse and they get worse and they get worse. And no one says, sometimes you need to go, like, take a step back. Sometimes less is more. Mm-hmm. Take a step back, start working on your internal game, start working on your inner game, start thinking, why am I feeling like this? Start questioning things, start learning and putting things into practice. So, yeah, football's a mad game. Since I've been into it, like knowing professional footballers, like they a lot of them struggle, like really badly. And again, it's the struggle with, it's mainly based on fear of failure, judgment, not living up to their expectations, not meeting their expectations, the language of should, shouldn't. Mm-hmm. I should have been here. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. I should have been playing at this level. No, you shouldn't. You are where you are now, and that's all you can deal with. Stop mentally masturbating about where you perceive you should be. Come back to now. You're here now. Now what can you do?
Instead of, I always say this with clients, instead of what if, get back to what is. Like if you ever catch yourself in a what if, like what if this, or I should be here, or some projection into the future or the past, you've just got to get your mind out of that and into a what is very quickly.
It's hard if you haven't been trained.
Yeah, it's a skill set. It's a skill set in your mind as well as it is in your body. It's interesting you were saying about, you know, they train harder, they train in the gym, they try to get stronger, faster, whatever. But it's the same thing. Like if you have a Formula One driver and they're driving a car, that's what they're essentially doing is they're making the car faster. Mm-hmm. They're putting better tires on the car, but they're not really paying attention to the person who's actually driving the vehicle. And I think if you think of a footballer as, you know, the driver is the mind, and the body is the car, and they're trying to make the body more efficient when the mind is limited. Yeah, and I think we've got to really. I think elite sport is a great amplification of general population, because you've got people who are at the fringe of excellence, and if you see that all of their problems are amplified, like anxieties are amplified. So having this conversation again with like Johnny, my good friend, we have like deep conversations about stuff, and we were talking about, you know, like gym anxiety, when people walk into a gym and they've got gym anxiety. And I'm like, it's not gym anxiety, it's generalized anxiety amplified by the gym. Like it's an environmental thing that creates that anxiety to be in full show. And I think football's the same. Like to think that a professional footballer doesn't have anxiety or fears or doubts or worries or insecurities, or that because they get paid that money, it's like, it's almost like danger money, right? Like, they get paid a couple $100,000 a week, it's all right for them. Yeah. Or I have this conversation with people sometimes, like coming from, you know, playing semi-pro, and I've had it with my dad sometimes. He's like, yeah, it's all right, innit? Sitting on the bench, a couple $100,000 a week. And I'm like, no, like it's like the money is good, but I guarantee for a lot of players, sitting on the bench is the fucking worst thing in the world.
No, it is, yeah.
Oh, well, some of them might enjoy it, to be honest, doing fuck all, but there's the majority of people who actually want.
Again, it depends on the mindset.
Yeah.
Like, if you're based around fear and you're struggling, sitting on the bench is okay.
Yeah. Because you're hiding.
You're not in the arena.
Yeah.
And you're kind of sitting there. But yeah, most players want to play. And then what I find is most players come to me when they're a bit older, 27, 28, 29, but it's like, I'm coming to the end now. Mm-hmm. I need to try and get a few yards quicker, sharper. And then the fear sets in. It's, what am I going to do again? What am I going to do next? People don't realise football's a short game. It's
very short, yeah.
You're hitting 30 and you're near the end, unless you're Ronaldo or Ibrahimovic. But yeah, people don't realise that you've only got so much time, and then football's been their whole life. And it's that, again, it's based around that identity. If when I finish football, then what? Now what do I do?
Yeah. Who am I?
Who am I? Yeah. Especially again,
it's very quickly to forget, like, players are just gone, and if they're not in punditry or whatever, like afterwards, like they're forgotten. And
then most of them think they go into coaching or personal training because that's all they know. Mm-hmm. So they know fitness. Football, exercise. So the PFA put me into exercise, like personal training. So I had a player not that long ago. I was working with him, pro footballer. He come my way, started working with him, and we started working around like values and what actually drives you. And we started talking for a few weeks. It's like, I realised I just don't like football anymore. And he's just signed for a new club, moved to the area, moved all his family there and quit. I literally quit. And he was like, I'm going to be a trainer. I'm like, you're not a trainer.
Yeah.
You are not a trainer. I've been speaking to you. I've been listening to you. All you've talked about is your dad was savvy with money. I do this with money. I do this, and I talk to people about their money. I'm like, you're going to be
advisor.
You're a financial advisor. And he's done all these courses now. Now he loves it. But beforehand, he'd have been like, if he didn't know what drives him and what he enjoyed, he would have been on the path to, like most players when they finish, to either be coach, pundit, personal trainer.
Yeah.
Rather than, I think you've got to figure out what drives you. And when we do, first thing I do is a values test to see, like, you're not a footballer. That's not your number one value. It's being a dad.
Yeah.
It's, no one can take that away from you. Whereas your identity as a footballer being taken away from you like that, one injury.
You don't even have a choice half of the time. Well, 100% of the time you have no choice in football.
No. It's the identity and the identity crisis is madness. So I try and say, listen, and they worry about, what do people think of me as a footballer? I'm like, don't worry about that. What do people think of you as a human? Mm-hmm. Like when they meet you, they go, what a great guy. Like most people don't care about you as a footballer. They care about how do you make them feel. I'm like, when you get to the end and it's on your grade set, it's not going to say your distribution stats, how many key passes you made. It's going to say how you made people feel. So go with, be a great human being and be a great person and provide value and go, oh, what a great person that is. He made me feel this way, rather than basing the whole thing around, oh, he only cares about my football. Because a lot of people, fans obviously, is a bit different.
But dude, like if you, as well with fans, like if I go to a football match and I take the generalized opinion of the average fan that is in the stands, like that is not a person that I typically want to take advice from or criticism from in my life. I've witnessed it myself. See, I used to, when I had the season ticket at Newcastle, I was only 5 rows up and we're right on the 6-yard line in the Gallagher. And the abuse that players used to get, man, like, it's actually wild. Like, on a street, nobody would ever say a single thing like that to someone.
Well, you say that, they do.
But to an average person, but
of course not.
To a footballer, it's just like, it's horrible. And like every, a player can't even go through divorce or a personal issue or something that cripples the average person without it being so publicized.
No, you're right. As you said, it's amplified.
Yeah.
So people say to me, why do you help footballers? I'm like, well, I've played in football. A lot of my friends were footballers. I've worked in football. I work for football clubs and I've seen the problems and I can relate to footballers. I speak their language. I know what they struggle with and I'm really fucking good at helping players. I've got the result after result after result after result. So I can help footballers, but they're like, what problems have they got? I'm like, can you imagine? Like, I just want you to imagine, right? You have a bad day at work, right? You're in the office, you have a bad day. What do you normally do? You go home, you might go to the pub, you'll have a few drinks. But if you're a professional footballer and you have a bad day at work, you've got 1,000 people criticising you on Twitter, telling you to kill yourself, you're shit, you're useless. Like, if you do decide to go down the pub, you're probably people are gonna try and start abuse. A fight with you. You're gonna get abuse. Like, there's no hiding place. Whereas in you have a bad day, I've had a bad day, and then you'll go and have a drink.
But it's all right for you though. You go back to your mansion, all
exactly.
your money.
Again, I mean,
it's a lonely fucking big place to be, isn't it? Like,
again, it brings more problems.
Yeah, that's what people don't see, man.
Yeah, they don't see that. Like, players, yeah, they do. They've got great. Some of them got. That's the top tier. When you go down the leagues, it's not even. Especially with COVID now, you'll see players with contracts, and they're not even getting offered less than a quarter than there was offered. And then obviously they've got their houses, their mortgages. Some players pay. This is what other people don't see. They pay for their parents, their girlfriend's parents, or their wife's parents. And then suddenly they've got a contract, and then the money's gone, or they can't get a contract, and then all these people are relying on them to pay for their houses, to pay for their food, and they struggle with that. And people don't see that. They're like, "Oh, you earn loads of money." It's only for a short space of time. I guarantee if you put yourself in their position or a day, not many people will be able to handle it.
No.
They'll be like, get me out of it's not worth the money.
And when people say they get loads of money, what they're looking at is like Premier League footballers for one.
Oh yeah.
But as you go down to Championship, yeah, okay, still decent salaries. But League One, League Two, it's capped.
Yeah, it's not much at all.
Salary caps.
Yeah. And
yeah, like you say, these are people who have their performance is based on their entire career. So they have a lot of, the agents, and
they're fighting for the next contract. It's especially down the lower leagues, it's contracts. You're playing for your next contract, for your next job. And again, people don't see it. They're like, oh, you're a professional footballer. I'm like, imagine, right? So I had a bit of a struggle. So I've just moved to Liverpool, and that was hard. Like, just even thinking about moving to Liverpool, like, because I'm a Man
United fan, that's why.
Wow. Because all my business was my business was down in London, and then all my family were there and my friends were there. So I had to leave to come to Liverpool, where I didn't really know anyone, and I've got no friends. I've got my partner and my stepson and my new baby, but I didn't really know anyone. It was like a real mental struggle for ages. But if you're a player, next thing you know, you're going to Scotland.
Yeah.
So you're going to your missus and kids, we're going to Scotland.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they're like, oh no, we've just sent you on loan. Now you're going to Bournemouth. Yep. So you're going down the other end of the country. You've got no certainty at all. Like, absolutely no certainty. Like, you're moving up and down the country, your kids are moving, your missus stays and your kids stay in the same place and you don't see them. You're in hotels all the time. And everyone's like, it must be great to be a professional footballer. I'm like, it's really not. I promise you, if you see the struggles that professionals have, they struggle not seeing their kids. They struggle moving. They're in the car, or if they do, they're like, do you know what? I'm gonna have a base, and they drive to training 3 hours there, 3 hours back a day.
Yep. And
if you're in a bad mindset, the worst place you could be is in the car, as you probably know. Like, that's how I had literally that sent me over the edge, because I had a meltdown driving years ago. When I was 27 and things got on top of me, I was 3 hours in the car and I was overthinking, and then you're constantly thinking. And I've had player, and he's been on the podcast. He wanted to drive into the central reservation and kill himself on the way for training. So he'd go to training, wear a mask, alpha male, biggest alpha male you've ever seen. You'd never know he had any problems. And then he'd want to kill himself on the way home, then pull into the services and cry. If you saw him, you'd be like, he ain't got no problems. But people don't see no one sees the underneath.
It's because society deems a problem as like having no money. And if you have money, then you have no problems. That's like most people's logic. They think, if I just had money, then I would be happy. I would have no problems. Like, it's so ingrained in us.
Yeah.
But like, once you've completed I have money, you're still left with yourself.
Yeah.
It's mad to think, yeah. And I know, like, I can almost see the comments, like, oh yeah, but at least they're a professional football, they get to do what they do. I playing semi-pro. It was the lifestyle. That's why I retired at like 26, 27.
Did you look for negative comments? Just ask. Did you ever look on the fans forums and look for the negative comments? I know I did.
Yeah, like yeah, and they used to have. I used to get what's the pink paper, the non-league.
Yeah, the non-league paper. Yeah,
yeah, looking there and yeah, fans forums and stuff, and that's like on a really low level. Like we'd have 100 fans there. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to fathom how. I mean, I'm a Newcastle fan. Lascelles went through a really rough patch earlier in this season. They actually came off Twitter at one point because Newcastle fans were giving them so much shit.
I think you do have to. Sometimes you have to be very careful with social media. Like I see some of the comments that players get. Is if you haven't trained yourself, then you're bang in trouble. There's this saying that I use: positive comments are like Teflon, they slide away, where negative comments are like Velcro and they stick. The negative always has the stronger pull. We drive towards the negative. I'm like, listen, and I say to players, your diet isn't just what you eat, it's what you consume.
Yeah.
Like through your eyes and your ears, it's what you watch. Like you're watching the news constantly. If you watch the news, it's obviously very negative, especially at the moment. Like what you reading? Are you reading about yourself? You've got to be very careful with your diet.
Match of the day even, do you know what I mean?
You've got to be very careful with your diet.
Yeah.
That is what you consume.
It's Wayne Dyer used to say a quote. It was like to be independent of the good opinion of people. And I think that really resonated with me because growing up, I would have my dad watch me play football all the time. And like I'd almost play through his eyes. Like I'd play and I'd look to him constantly. And then after the match, I'd ask him how'd I play? And if he said good, I'd feel amazing. If he was always really honest. Like if he said badly, I'd feel like shit.
Yeah.
And so that quote is to be like, okay, like the good stuff, just let it go. The bad stuff, you got to be like, if you're addicted to the praise and that praise drives you, then the negative stuff's going to cripple you like 10 times more. Like you say, it sticks more.
It doesn't matter what you do you?
You've got to be very neutral around it.
Even if you do great, everyone's got different perceptions. Like there's no praise without criticism. It works hand in hand. Like you'll see Rashford doing all these stuff for the kids. He's done like, unbelievable things, but he's going, well, concentrate on your football.
Yeah.
Like, can't do this. You're never going to win.
No, exactly. I remember when he missed that penalty, right? And like everyone was praising him for doing the meals for the kids, and then he misses the penalty and all the racial abuse and
yeah,
it's hard, man. I'm surprised that like more young players, when they're rich and they've got enough money, just be like, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah, I've been working with academy. As I said before, and we were sitting downstairs having a coffee. Been working with academies, and you just see this just riddled with fear. And so we're going. I'm like, why? Like I'm working with players 27, 28, 29. I'm like, right, we need to get in. That there's a gap in the market. Like players have got sports psychologists. Football clubs are messed up. Some of them got sports psychologists, but they don't do anything. They're not proactive. Like working with one club, the psychologist sits in his office and waits for people to come to him. I'm like, do something.
Yeah.
And then you go to football clubs. Like I've been asked to speak at a few football clubs, or players are going, "Oh, come in and do a chat," and the sports psychologist go, "No." I'm like, why can't we work together?
Yeah.
But no, that's my area. I'm just going to sit in my office. That's not kind of what we do.
Football's very bureaucracy and it's traditional and this is how it's done.
I'm like, well, teach people how to deal with criticism. Teach them how the mind works. Teach people, like a lot of it is based on belief systems or other people's belief systems. Like, as you said, the car journey, that I've had players messed up from, again, they're playing in the Premier League and they're still messed up by their car journeys from their dads giving criticism. My dad never told me I could have a welding. My dad still told me I was terrible or I do something wrong. And parents are obviously a big problem as well. They need to be, that's why we're going to the academies. Yeah. It's not just for the players. We're going to do sessions for the parents because they need help as well. They need to know how to communicate to their kids, tell them
how to regulate their emotions, how to,
Yeah, or what they did well rather than going, First thing, how did I do? And you're looking for that. Obviously, you're looking for that praise to go, I thought you did this well. And they go, that was shit. That was shit. You could have done this better. And you've just literally crippled someone. That car journey home is massively important. You've got to go, well, I thought this was the first thing. Find what was good. And then go, well, do you know what? I thought you could have improved that. And what do you think? Ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you could do differently? Rather than going, no, that was shit. Like the questions that people ask are, again, terrible questions. It's all about the questions that open up learning, and you can find a new part. Obviously, with coaching is questions, right?
Yeah.
You ask questions. You ask a terrible question, you get a terrible answer. You ask a good question, you get a good answer. And I'm always into, can I plant seed? I don't want to tell people what to do. Can I, first of all, give them tools? Can I plant some seeds? And then if they come to me, I'd rather them figure out the answer themselves, rather than me go, this is what you need to do, or do. Sometimes you'll try and get there.
Yeah, guide you
like you'll ask questions, and then eventually they don't get it. You go, listen, I think possibly you could do this. What do you think about that? So it's about, again,
or like what I'm hearing between the lines is this, and this. What do you think?
Like, it's so important, like listening, and like again, managers in football, managers are a nightmare.
Dude, I had the worst, like. My manager, wow, dude. Like, I've seen him at half time, like, slap players when I was playing semi-pro.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Like, and everyone's just sat there, like, and nobody said anything.
Yeah. Like, how does criticizing someone, telling them they're shit and they're a wanker, how does that help them?
Yeah.
That's not going to make them perform any better. I've been working with, it's been really interesting. So I've been working with a manager, Braun Wood's manager. I don't know if you saw, they played Everton in the FA Cup in the 5th round. So I've been working, last year I worked with Braun Wood, and I've been working specifically with a manager. And he won't mind saying this because he's been on podcasts with me, and he used to have people up against the wall calling them all sorts of names, wanting to punch them. I'm like, no, that is not how you need to lead, right? Again, if you're on the touchline, managers don't understand. They're shouting at them, waving their hands, going, fucking calm down. I'm like, no.
Your body's telling them to amp up.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Stand there. Calm.
Yeah.
So I said to this manager, he go, you like this one? So I'm like, what animal are you? So you're on a touchline. I always like to say, what animal are you? What superhero are you? So you can put on a costume. What animal are you? He's like, well, I'm a swan. He's like, why are you a swan? It's like, well, because they're like big and imposing. They're imposing and they float across the water and they're calm. But underneath, they're fucking flapping like shit. And that's my head. And I'm fucking flapping like shit. But on the water, I show calm and stillness. I'm imposing. I'm like, that's it. You're the swan. Be the swan. And then we use this technique of, again, like, do you know about bids? Something happens and then you have a bid. You got towards bids, ignore the bid, or away from bids. Do you know anything about it?
Elaborate.
So basically, when something happens, you invite something that invites response is a bid. So they found out in relationships, they studied all these relationships, and then over years and years and years, they found out that people who respond positively to bids, and that's something that invokes a response. So, like, for example, your partner's watching TV, or your missus watching TV, and she says something. Now you've got a choice, right? That's a bid. Mm-hmm. You can either go against the bid, and you can go, oh, shut up, yes.
Yeah.
You can, or say a negative comment. You can ignore it, which what most of us do, or you can have a positive response, go towards the bid.
Curiosity.
So yeah, you can do that. And in football, I was like, right, first thing I went to watch football clubs. I'm watching and it's just, everyone's criticising each other. I'm like, the first thing is, right, how do we make the boat go faster? How do we make the boat go faster? It's not everyone rowing as quick as they can. It's everyone rowing in the same direction at the same time. And it starts with, he's just made a mistake. He didn't mean to make a mistake. When he makes a mistake, that's a bid. So you can either go, you must have seen that basketball one where he lifts his chin up. You must have seen that video.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
That's a bid. That's a positive. Keep your chin up.
It, yeah.
So you can either go, for fuck's sake, or you can ignore it, or you can go, listen, you're better than that. Next time we can do better. So I'm like, listen, go with positive bids. Someone makes a mistake. They don't mean to make a mistake. No one makes a mistake on purpose. So go with a positive response. Go with a positive bid. So with the manager, what we did, Tried so many things. I was like, right, your kids are always watching you. So in the dugout, I put a picture of his kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't work. So I was like, right, I want a little something that you can keep in your pocket. So he got a little Lego man. So he asked these kids, like, can you give me something to keep in my pocket? So they knew he's been working with me. So he went, right, here's a little Lego man. So it's a little Lego man, and he pulled his head off.
A little one like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, like exactly that. So one of them, and he pulled his head off. He's like, why did you put his head off? He go, because Daddy always loses his head. So what we did, I was like, right, your left hand, you can keep while you're managing, you got your left hand, you got your right hand. If you're being positive and you're giving positive feedback, you have it in your left hand. If you criticize, you got to put it in your right hand. And then as soon as you notice that, you got to put it back. You got to keep it in your left hand as quickly as you can. So it's like an anchor, right? Mm-hmm. So you make it conscious. And then in the end, he put it in, like he had it in his pocket. And it was mad. So they had, when they played Everton, he done a big athletic interview, and he said like how I've been helping him and stuff. And the fourth official was a Premier League referee. And he went, have you got it? He went, got what? He went, your little Lego man. Is it in your pocket? He went, oh, here it is. And then Luke started shouting. He obviously lost his head a little bit during the game. And the fourth official looked over to him and went, you need to put that in your other pocket. Amazing. Just something so small. But like working with the managers and the players, like you'll see the different perceptions. It's like the manager have a perception of a player, mm-hmm. and then I'm teaching him how to, again, read body language.
See the individual instead of the player. Yeah.
So there was an example was in the change rooms at half time, he's giving, so we have a match script now. So he done, right, you got a match script. Like you got your behaviours, and then you have a match script, how the match is going to go. So that's one thing did this season. And then at half time, there's no point in shouting at a squad of players, shouting at what went wrong. Like, how can you improve in the second half? Proactive, not reactive. Let's change that.
Yeah, stop bollocking people.
Yeah, okay. That's a tool. Like that's a tool, but it's not. It's the same. Support and accountability. Like a manager will lose the dressing room. Too much support, not enough accountability, you lose a dressing room. Too much accountability, not enough support, you lose a dressing room. It's a constant accountability support. So you need to, that's a tool you have. It's not a constant tool you have. Same as support is not a constant tool, because they might lose respect. Sometimes you need to give a bit of a bollocking. It gives you a bit of a kick up the arse. I need a bollocking sometimes. I need someone to go, fuck's sake, Rob, do something different, or you can be better than that. And that would drive me. But said we're teaching him body language, and he's given a team talk at half time, and a player has rolled his eyes, and normally here's that player up against the wall. But because he knows I'm like that's called an eye block. So he's eye blocking. It's a sign of disagreement. So if he disagrees with something, say, listen, I'm not going to say the player's name, but what do you disagree with there? What do you think? Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Now you know that behaviour. He just disagrees with something. That's fine. Ask what you can do differently. And they go out the second half, they go and win. But beforehand, if you don't know them behaviours, or if you don't know body language and how human behaviour, like as a manager, people think this is what he's realised. You're taught tactics, strategy. But most of it is you're managing people.
Yeah, people first.
You need to know how to manage people.
And that's what strikes me about you as a coach. It's like you're not coaching the footballer, you're coaching the individual, the person. You're seeing the human being and being like, let's become a better human being. Let's become a more aware human being. And that will transcend into football, but also every other area of your life.
Yeah, massive. I'm like, I don't give a flying fuck that you're a footballer. I'm not here to kiss your ass. Like I'm here to help you. And if I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to be like, oh, well done and praise. I'm here to tell you how it is. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm going to be completely vulnerable. I'm going to tell you what I'm struggling with. And I want you, because you have to open up with a player, you have to open up and be vulnerable. Like vulnerability is a great place to start.
Trust, builds trust.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is what happened to me. This is my story. Like I've got audio books and there's bits out there, but listen to my story. no, I want you to be vulnerable back. I don't want you to bullshit me. I won't bullshit you. Don't bullshit me. And then we can work together. And then that trust builds. Like the players I work with, we've become great mates. I've been going to their like parties. We get invited to their weddings, like because we open up and we're friends.
Yeah.
I think that's how it should be. I don't see you as a client. I see you as a friend, and it's a relationship. Then we can help each other more, and then we can communicate more effectively, rather than me just telling you what to do. I think a client is a friend. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, like I the people that I coach, I know everything that's going on in their personal life because I coach the individual, and I feel like the business is an extension of the human being. The same way that the footballer is an extension of the human being. And I think it's always a human first approach.
Yeah, it is.
I think a great example of in professional football today is like, look at Eddie Howe and what job he's done at Newcastle. Like, he's largely got the same team of players. You've got Trippier's out, 4 players that he brought in. Mm-hmm. It's essentially the same squad though. And I think there's only Liverpool had more points in 2022 than Newcastle. And you think, how can this same group of people. John Joe Shelby, did you see his interview?
No.
He said the first thing that Eddie Howe got them to do was to write down their kids' names, their wives' names, their dates of birth, and details about them and information about them. Mm-hmm. He was like, I've never experienced that at a football club before. Like, no one's ever cared about me and my family and my stuff. I think that's like so important. Like, it just shows his depth of leadership, and like you say, it's a human first approach. And if more, good managers these days are typically in football, a good manager is a formerly good football player. Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen time and time again that's not always the case.
Yeah,
and it's like almost like generational trauma in football because that's how it always was. And as they were playing as a player, they might have got a bollocking.
Yeah.
Pinned up against the wall.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's all they've, and that's all they've known.
100%.
So that's all they've known is that, and then that's all they do. And like you say, it's all strategy and tactics, but to get a performance out of a person, it's not, you say, to be a professional footballer in the Premier League, you're technically better than 99.9999% of the people on the planet.
Yeah.
At football. It's not a technical or a tactical thing. Mm-hmm. It's an awareness thing. Like you say, support and accountability at the same time.
The stats are, so we looked into because we were doing the academy, to become a pro footballer, if you go for academy, 0.5% go for academy to become a professional footballer. To get in the Premier League, 0.05%.
In the UK?
Yeah. To become a Premier League footballer, 0.05%. And then...
So there's a massive failure somewhere along. Like, that's not a success. That's not a success for the academies, right? Like, it's almost shocking to think, well, where does 99.95% of the footballers come from?
Yeah, it is mad. And then that's why, again, if you're a young kid, you've been told, like I did, right? But I was a goalkeeper. But as a goalkeeper, I'm obviously a little bit smaller. And everyone was like, you're going to make it. But I was a great shot stopper. Hey, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. Oh, you're the best goalkeeper. You're great. You're great. You're great. County, district, Chelsea, then suddenly released. Like, I dealt with it very well because I don't think I believed I was going to make it because Chelsea kept on saying to me, well, we'll wait for you to grow. We'll wait for you to grow. We'll wait. You ain't not growing, are you? Like, literally, unfortunately, we need keepers that are... And again, like, we got all these young players coming through, oh, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're going to make it, you're going to make it, you're going to make it. And the stats are, more than likely...
You're not
going to make it. Obviously, you have to believe you're going to. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
But you got to be realistic. You're like, okay, what if you don't make it? You have to have the tools. Again, these kids are left on the scrap heap. They make it through. They're like, it's a conveyor belt.
Yeah, because you put everything in. Even me, it's like one of my biggest. No, I wouldn't say regrets. I don't really have regrets, but like, I had a very narrow field of view as a kid. Just like football, that was it. That was the only sport that I was really even interested in. Mm-hmm. But now I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, and I wish I would have had more of a broad spectrum or more opening to like different sports. I had two really good friends growing up, and one had captained Wayne Rooney at England youth. Another was pro at Leeds. Two of the most technically gifted football players I've ever fucking come across. And I think, I'm like, if they haven't made it, like, the standard of actually making it is
ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
But again, I think a lot of players, like the attitude,
It
comes down, a lot of time it comes down to mental. Like Gary Neville wasn't the most technically gifted, but he had the right attitude, the right mindset. And it was mad that, like, I do podcasts, so I've got a podcast. I interview players, and I had this player on. So I saw him talk about academy footballers and the problems in academy football and the mental health side. And he was on BBC News and Sky News. I thought, we'll get him in. Started chatting to him. Then obviously he reached out to me. And then in pre-season, didn't have a club. And then I was like, he was 19 years old. And I was like, this kid is ridiculous. Like, his attitude, his self-awareness. I was like, 19. It took me till 27, 28. 29 to start getting there, and I'm like, this kid is unbelievable. So he was having trials at Bournemouth. He was at Swansea. He decided to leave. Had trials at Swansea. Had trials at another club, and then he was like, Rob, I'm started talking to me, and I was like, I know the club you need to go to. It's mad. It's like suddenly you become an agent. Yeah. So I got on the phone. I was like, this kid. He's a great player. You need to get him in. So I got him in, and he ended up signing for Wycombe Wanderers. And then he rang me, and I never even thought about this. He rang me, and we were talking, and he said, like, my brother's struggling, and I'm trying to help him, but obviously I'm too close to him. Can you have a word with him? He's a basketball player. And I was saying to him how it's important to have a great attitude, a great mindset and resilience. And like, when you speak to someone, you never know where it's going to lead. I'm like, what do you mean? He went, well, listen, you just helped me sign for Wycombe Wanderers. You've never seen me play football. So that's a great point. I've never seen you play football. But because of his attitude and his mindset and the way he spoke.
Culture fit.
I was like, what? He needs to go to, this club will suit him. They've got that like team spirit, that leadership, like they all for one. They're very self-aware, do things differently. That would be a great fit for him. I'd never seen him play football, and he ended up signing for that football club. So obviously he's not a bad player, but I never saw him play. But I knew he had what it took mentally to get to that level.
Technically,
I had no idea. I'd never seen him play football. He was right. I'm like, he's like, you've never seen me play football, but you recommended me to a football club, and I signed for that football club without you even watching me. I'd never even watched a clip of him play football. That's mad, right?
And I think if you look at like talent scouting, you probably just were very in tune with his mentality, whereas somebody else might be very in tune with their technical ability. And you've gone like, his attitude is second to none. And I think there is, like you say, there is players the other way where their attitude's horrible.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, their attitude's horrible. The technical ability's through the roof, and they have a massive.
You'll find him go club to club.
One of my friends who's very much like that, he just didn't get on with the pro manager. He actually had his contract paid out. He's like, fuck this, fuck football. I'll have me pro contract paid out, and he left.
Yeah, and an ego. Yeah, ego's massive.
But it's not just one way though. It's like the managers are the same. They're just button heads.
Yeah, the managers need to change. Football's different than it was years ago.
You see Rafa struggling, Mourinho struggling.
Yeah.
And that's in a short space of time. They were two of the best managers in the world at one point, and now they're struggling.
Yeah, football's so changed so much.
The world's changed.
The world's changed. Everything's changed. You're right. Like again, but you have to adapt. You have to. Again, one of the greatest skills of a leader is to be adaptable, change.
The chameleon.
Yeah, basically, change. Like, and you got to be willing to use the growth mindset. You got to be willing to go, maybe I need to be different. And that's what I loved about working with Luke, the Bournemouth manager. It's the first manager. I normally work with players, but it was great working with a manager because I know I'm like, listen, you're the leader.
Yeah. You
need to show the behaviors, the attitude. If you want them to be this certain way, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like you can't, like you'll go like, oh, they're criticising each other. There's a problem with criticising. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. How are you facilitating that? How are you allowing that to be?
This is your fault.
Yeah.
This comes from you.
Yep.
And he's
So
like,
leadership or lack of.
yeah. But and when you start learning it, you're like, at first it's very there's so much resistance to it. Like there was with me. I talk to younger players. I talk to like my mate Luke, who we're going to start with academies, and he loves it. You get into the younger players, I don't need that. Well, I don't need mindset training. Like, so I had to change my name because it said mindset. It was called the Footballer's Mindset. Now it's Elite Inner Performance.
Yeah.
Because people think of, again, it's the perception around mindset.
Thank you for holding me accountable at the start for that.
Performance.
Yeah.
Performance, you're like, oh, it's going to drive my performance. Mindset, oh, this ain't wrong with me. Again, it comes down to what you link it to and the perception of a word. I'm like, oh, we're going to work on your performance. Oh, amazing. That will get me a bit better. We're going to work on your mindset. I don't need that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to work on my mindset. Like, again, as you go younger, that you've had no real adversity. You have nothing's really gone wrong. You'll find out. And there's a player that I love talking to, and I get him doing loads of trainings for me because he talks about the way he got brought through, and he had so many tests, and he uses this phrase, and I use it all the time. I take it on from players. Like when I talk to players, I'm learning constantly. Like when we do podcasts, I'm like, you think I'm helping you? You're helping me.
It's experiential, like you're learning through their eyes.
Yeah.
Like
I'm learning from you. Like you're giving me like they're like, oh, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, well, I have as many conversations as I can because I'm constantly learning and listening. And one of the things he said is, it's just a test. And I'm like, I love that. It's just a test. So how do you come through each test? So as he was going through Middlesbrough, supported Middlesbrough, injury. Everyone told him to quit football, said, don't play football anymore. Like his mum said, you need to do something else. And he's like, no, this is a test. This is my test to see how much I want it. I need to get through this test. So anytime he goes through like adversity, he's like,
just a test.
It's just a test. And the way he's framed it, it's
just as well. The word just is very important.
It's just a test. And I use it now. I'm like, I'm being tested. It's just a test. This is a test of, like the saying, I love the saying, I use it a lot. So during times of stress and adversity, you don't rise to our expectations, we fall to our highest level of training.
Yep.
I'm like, well, how well trained are you when it comes to your inner performance, mindset, your beliefs, what you assume to be true? Have you done any work on it? Because if you haven't, like I was when I had like my meltdown years ago,
you have no tools.
Yeah, you got no. You need a tool. You need a toolbox. Like you're like, okay, something's happened. What have I got? I've got this. I've got a hammer. Do I need this? Do I need this? But most players haven't got any tools, and football clubs don't teach them, give them any tools. I'm like, that's crazy. Why? Again, you have coaches in football clubs. You have masseuses, physios, coach for this, coach for that, coach for this. I'm like, when like I speak to my mate who's doing a doctorate in Australia on coaches. The first, I think he's doing one of the first ones on coach-athlete relationships. And he said it's 80% psychology, 20% football. And then as soon as you speak to players, and it's all psychology. Everything's psychology, really, isn't it?
Yeah, everything.
Everything's psychology.
Even the way that you train, even the way you develop skills, even the way that you practice skills.
But we don't work on it.
It's like intentional practice is the thing that will.
It's some crazy stuff, and I'm still struggling to get my head around it. That's why I'm like, right, I've got to go in and fix this because no one else is doing it. So I'm going to go in and give academy kids the tools. Most of them aren't going to make it, but if I can give them, we do Zoom calls, live coaching. We teach them how to cook, recipes. I've got like coaches, a coach, performance recipe coach, so they've learned how to cook. Like we give them agents they can trust who have been a part of the game, financial advisors who have been a part of the game that are not going to screw players over. So they come to one place where they can get everything they need. And if they don't make it, they've got the tools. And then afterwards, someone comes in, we've got someone in there who wants professional athletes because they've got that mindset to help them with their careers after.
Yeah.
Again, football clubs don't have that. It's madness.
Well, if the failure rate is 99.95%, we have to do a better job. But like you say, it's just a scrap heap. It's like next, and kids are just coming through and they're just throwing kids on the scrap heap. Like they'd be better off almost having less kids.
Yeah,
and no team. Like it's wild.
And then if you don't make it in football, then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's mental. I think the toolkit thing's incredibly important. I've been made no secret of my journey through therapy. My therapist said we all have a toolkit, and that toolkit is something that we're given and will carry with us for the rest of our lives. What we have to do is to learn how to use that toolkit and select the right tools at the right times. Like none of us can, we're not in control of the families we're born into. We're not in control of the societies that we're born into. We're not in control of where we're born, culturally, where we're born. If you're born in Liverpool, very, very different culture to if you're born in London.
Yeah.
Massively different.
Yeah.
And you've got cultural, societal norms that you're born into. It's constructs that you're built into. And so you have this toolkit. And what we've got to do is learn how to use that toolkit. But then also understand that it's not just most people just reach for the sledgehammer. And that's how they attack every problem in life. When sometimes they need a chisel or sometimes they need a saw, I heard a little clip with Terry Crews the other day. He was talking on, I think it was like Lewis Howe's podcast. He was talking about his journey through therapy. And he's like, I realized we were all like a box of Lego. Right? And he's just like, this box of Lego is just shook up and it's all pieces. We see ourselves as we're broken. We're not. We just haven't finished assembling ourselves yet.
Yeah.
It's all these little pieces that we decide and we build. And that's what we have choice over. I think it's giving people tools and it's understanding, even if you have a limited toolkit, like how to use that toolkit that you have. Because they are, some people are born into privilege, other people aren't.
Yeah, and it depends on, as you said, your environment, who you're around. Can you seek help? Again, it's, as you said, if you're born in a certain place, and you said about control, and I say to players, what actually are you in control of? If you go onto a football pitch, what are you actually in control of? I give them a list of scenarios. Like, are you making a mistake? The crowd, the referee, what can't you control? What can you influence? What can you control? And then what you can control is very little.
Very, very little. Yeah.
How hard you work, your perceptions. Everything else, like the referee, you can influence. You have a team you can influence. Making a mistake, you can't control. There's so many different, scoring a goal, you can't control. There's so many, where the goalkeeper is, what the pitch is like. There's where the players are, you can't control that. So concentrate on what you can control, not what you can't control. Because again, it's the same as in life, right? Everyone's trying to control the uncontrollable.
The outcomes. They're trying to control the outcomes, which they can't.
No. You've got an outcome, you can work towards it. As you say, you can work on the process. What's the process? Enjoy the process. Again, if you look at people who got to where they got to, I think there was another study done, and it was like the people who got to the top in their profession, they focused on the process and got to the outcome by default. Whereas in the people who are outcome driven didn't get there. So it's like, okay, focus on what can you do daily? What's some small things you can do daily? What can you control? Fuck off all the things you can't control. And it's so hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it's very, very hard. That's where your mind goes anyway.
Yeah, because we're emotional creatures. We like to think we're logical, but you have the elephant and the rider. I use the analogy elephant and the rider. So you have the elephant, which is your emotional brain, and you have the rider, which is your logical brain. We think things are logical, but they're not. We're driven by emotion, and that elephant can literally charge at any time. And it does. You see it in football. Like he's lost control of his elephant.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to learn how train your rider so he can help the elephant. The elephant can go. You saw it with Will Smith.
Yep.
One of the most emotionally intelligent people I've listened to is some talks. He's got a book about a self-help book, but he lost control of his elephant when he went up and slapped Chris Brown across the face. And it happens.
Chris
Rock, yeah. Sorry.
He didn't slap me, dude.
Sorry. He could slap you.
Slap. I took him down, dude.
Jiu-jitsu.
I would have choked him out.
Yeah, so when he slapped Chris Rock across the face, I'm like, it happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. Like, you can't control everything, but we try and you'll see it. You see it in football. They're trying to control the uncontrollable. And like, you can't control that. What can you control? Again, come back to control the controllables, especially in football. again, it's not.
Well, dude,
It's not easy.
How much time does a player actually touch the ball in an entire match? It could be like, isn't it something ridiculous, like 2 minutes of ball time?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like a 95-minute match, and they touch the ball for like 2 minutes. So a lot of that is their movement off the ball. It's their energy. It's their work rate. It's the communication.
Communication, yeah. How can you influence through communication?
Yeah,
communication is massive again. But
massive.
if you don't.
Most people don't know how to communicate in life, never mind on a pitch.
Yeah, again,
and their communication's just fucking you.
It's criticism rather than giving specific information.
Yep.
I teach players that as well. I'm like, how do you deliver information, specific information that gets...
Oh, like, for fuck's sake, you're better than that. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah, it's terrible. In team talks, I'm like, well, what... Instead of like, football is known for its generalizations, and it's like, get stuck in. I'm like, that's shit.
What does it mean? Yeah.
Well, that's shit information. That's terrible. What specifically do you need to do? Let's make it more specific rather than get stuck in.
And actually training people to ask, like, when you say that, what does it actually mean?
Get stuck. Don't lose your man.
Yeah.
Stick with it. Like, I'd work with a goalkeeper. Again, I used to be a goalkeeper, and we go, don't cross. No, don't cross. Don't cross. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm like, that's shit information. Again, the brain can only process commands.
He's going to cross the ball. That's his job.
So let's be more specific in our language.
Yeah.
Again, why don't football clubs teach players how to communicate more effectively? Madness.
Well, considering
the 1%, I'm very big into the little. Like, you got to get your basics right first. Again, I take away from players that I work with. One of the players that I first come on the podcast, I end up meeting him. Like, he's an old player. A lot of people might not know him. His name's Gilberto Silva. So he was an Arsenal invincible. And he said to me, one thing, I take away one thing from every player. I'm like, right, what one thing do I take away? He's like, keep it simple. So he was called the invisible wall. So he said, people don't know I'm there. I win the ball back and I give it to players better than me. Ronaldinho, Bergkamp, Henry, Ronaldo. I give the ball to I'm the invisible wall. I keep it simple. That's what Arsene Wenger told. Keep it simple. Like, well, when it comes to football, have you got the basics right first? Because most of them haven't got the basics right. Again, do you want to be proactive or reactive? When I speak to a footballer, I'm like, what do you want to be? As a footballer, is it better to be proactive or reactive? I expect to be proactive. Right, let's have a look at your phone, first of all. Let's have a look, see what you're doing. What are you doing first thing in the morning? Are you setting yourself in a proactive or a reactive state? You're reacting to messages, you're scrolling through Twitter, looking for your name. You're reacting straight away.
Or looking to like validate yourself through love and praise and...
Yeah, well, use the first hour for you, but let's keep it simple. Let's get the basics right, some basics right first. Like, what process can play? Where are you? Scale of 1 to 10. Well, I kind of know you need to put this process in place first. Really simple. Yeah. I'm not going to overwhelm you with it. Just keep, because everyone wants to overcomplicate, as you know. Everyone wants to overcomplicate shit. Rather than do the simple things daily, which is boring as fuck, but it gets you the result. Yeah. Consistency wins. It's the same in football.
Somebody said boring makes you a billionaire. Someone said, I heard a quote the other day.
It's hard because we want the magic. Yeah. I remember one time years ago, I got this program. I was like, it's fucking too simple. Like, it was a training program. I'm like, it's too simple. It's never going to work. Yeah. I complained about it. I was only young. It's like this program. I'm like, I want to.
You haven't even done it yet.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know.
He's like, well, that was before I knew anything. He's like, well, it's progressive overload.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, progressive overload. Simple consistency. Consistency wins. I always talk about the compound effect. Right? Would you have? As soon as you talk to a player, 3 million right now, you know this one, or 1p that doubles every day for 31 days. Most people take the 3 million. I'm like, well, the 1p.
10 mil.
10 million, yeah. Simple things daily.
Compound.
Big result. We're looking for people want the quick wins.
Did a little video on this the other day.
Yeah?
We've got 60 seconds to wrap up, but did a little video on it. It was like, some people are so addicted to the desire of the outcome that they're unwilling to be bad at something and get better over time.
Yeah.
Or do something slower, less efficient, you know, and get better and faster as they go.
And the best goals are never ending goals, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It only extends anyway. Yeah. So 60 seconds to wrap up. I'll give you an opportunity, whatever you want to say.
Right. So to wrap up, work on your mindset.
Yeah.
It's your biggest asset. Like that's, again, if you go, the more emotional intelligent you are, the more money you earn. So you're a business coach, and it's been proven. There was a study done. The more emotional intelligence you have, the more money you earn. So work on your mindset, work on your emotional intelligence. Again, get a coach. Stay accountable. Do the simple things. Simple things over time win, which took me ages to get, ages to learn. Like simple things. Write down 3 wins a day. Like find the good. Find the good, not what's wrong, because we always find what's wrong. Find what's right.
Live in the gain instead of the gap.
Yeah. Find the lesson from it and move forward as quickly as you can, because you can't change the past. There's nothing that you can do. You can't control that. I was having someone messaging me, and we're starting a new course on Monday, and he's arguing with me. Oh, they should do this, they should do that. I'm like, no, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Stop arguing with it. Acceptance is the first stage. Like my mum died not long ago, and if I didn't have, like I said, I had a meltdown when I was 27, but now I had the tools. Like I had the hardest 6 months of my life, but I had the tools to deal with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it wasn't shit and it wasn't hard. It was, but train yourself, train your mindset. Get a coach like you, get a mentor who can help you through the journey, because it shortcuts the route to success.
There we go. Thank you so much.
No worries, mate.
For sharing your wisdom. I'm sure we'll be, now that you're in Liverpool, I'm sure you'll be back on.
I hope so. Yeah, I enjoyed that. It was good fun.
One.
Always good fun. It always goes too quick, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it, as always.